Hi, folks. I guess I screwed this one up. I scheduled it for 11:40 p.m. I meant to schedule it for now. So here we are. This is Empowering Democracy, and I'm your host, Joe Firestone. It's 11:42 a.m. on October 26, 2022. And the topic of this particular stream is more debt ceiling games being played, of course, by the Republicans. They're having a wonderful time talking about what they're going to extract from the Democrats by playing debt ceiling games if they should win the House in 2023. Please share, like, and subscribe, of course. Hi, Dolores. Thank you very much for coming. I'm sorry I made that particular scheduling error, which is probably confusing people all over the internet. But there it is. I made the error. I'm going to have to live with it at this point. Okay, so let's share a piece from Common Dreams, which talks about more debt ceiling games. Again, it's about the Republicans holding the economy hostage, this time probably the world economy hostage. There's the chief hostage taker, Kevin McCarthy, and there is his assistant, Steve Scalise. And the title of this article is GOP Threatens to Hold Economy Hostage to Slash Climate Investments. In other words, there was a bill just passed by the Democrats just a few months ago that had some climate investments in it. Not much. These were, of course, the biggest climate investments in history because we've done nothing in the area of climate investments. But still, it was marvelously inadequate. So inadequate. There was about, if I recall correctly, 375 billion over 10 years in it for doing something about the climate emergency that we have. So it was 37.5 billion per year. They've already invested 52 billion in the Ukraine war, which on a per year basis is only 5.7 billion per year, is 5.7 billion per year. That's already what did I do? I think I'm getting my arithmetic wrong here. I won't say math because it ain't math. But anyway, $375 billion over 10 years is 37.5 billion. And 52 billion over 10 years is 5 billion a year. So the climate investments are more than that. But of course, they're planning on another. Well, they're talking 40 billion. I've seen the figure 40 billion, but there are some other figures in there too. I've also seen the figure, if they make this next round of Ukraine investments rise to 102 billion, which is 10.2 billion over 10 years. So they've already invested or are planning to invest about 1/4 of what they're going to invest in the climate over the next 10 years in a single year. It's really pretty pathetic, I think. Pretty pathetic. Quote, if Republicans take over Congress, they plan to hold the government hostage and ransom our future, said one climate advocate. This was done by Jake Johnson on October 25th, 2022. In addition to threatening cuts to Social Security and Medicare, so they're still going to cut Social Security and Medicare. Congressional Republicans are reportedly plotting to use the debt ceiling and an end-of-year clash over government funding to target popular climate investments approved in August as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA. The Washington Post reported Tuesday that while some Republicans do favor brinksmanship over Medicare and Social Security, some aides and analysts think the GOP may be more likely to demand changes to other Democratic priorities, unquote. By the way, in my view, the climate isn't a Democratic priority. The climate is a national priority. Fixing the climate emergency is the most important thing we can do over the next 10 years. Probably the most important thing we can do, period, because all our survivals are up for grabs. Quote, GOP leaders have discussed using the debt limit and government shutdown fights to press for cuts to clean energy spending, the Post noted. The Washington Post says. Quote, Republicans are also eyeing demands for the administration to slow or reverse its plans to ramp up Internal Revenue Service enforcement of the nation's tax laws. Although the GOP planning, is preliminary and expected to evolve, which means it's expected to get worse. Allying with the oil and gas lobby, Republicans in the House and Senate unanimously opposed the Inflation Reduction Act. I think what allying means is that the Republicans are taking money from the oil and gas lobby in return for opposing the Inflation Reduction Act, which includes nearly $370 billion, see I was only $5 billion off, in climate investments aimed at helping the U.S. transition to renewable energy and meet its emission reduction targets. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who is hoping to take the majority gavel next year, derided the historic investments as green boondoggles, while House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy called them, quote, socialist scams. You see, folks, it's an alliteration, SS, socialist scams. In recent weeks, Republicans have openly floated the idea of using a fight over the federal borrowing limit, which must be raised to prevent a disastrous default, as leverage to secure concessions from Democrats, including Social Security and Medicare cuts. Folks, it's clear-cut blackmail. The Republicans are blackmailers. Why do they get to blackmail the rest of the country and we don't get to blackmail them? How about a little blackmail for them? So another potential opportunity for Republicans could come in mid-December, when a recently passed government funding bill is set to expire. But if I can add something to this, They probably will not do that because the first thing the Democrats will say is, Republicans are going to put coal in your stocking for Christmas time. They're going to shut down the government. You won't have any jobs. You won't have any pay. The economy is going to take a hit because they decided to do it around Christmas time. Scroogey Republicans are starting to do it around Christmas time. Top Republicans, including McCarthy, have made clear that they intend to take advantage of those opportunities if they can win control of the House or the Senate in the November 8th elections. If Republicans take over Congress, they plan to hold the government hostage and ransom our future, Dave Willett, the spokesperson for League of Conservation Voters, said. And Sawyer Hackett tweeted, top Republicans, not mincing words, they will absolutely use the debt ceiling to bring the economy to the brink of total collapse. So let me ask you a question, folks. Why can't we charge them with blackmail if they do that and put them in jail? That's a serious question. Why are they allowed to blackmail people and ordinary citizens are not allowed to blackmail people? Your health care, prescription drugs, also Medicare and Social Security, all on the chopping block. And this is from the Washington Post. The American people expect Congress to use every tool at its disposal to combat rising prices, to strengthen our economy, to secure our border, to bring down the cost of energy, to fix our supply chains, and to right-size the federal government. Smith, a top contender to lead the House and Ways Committee, said Ways and Means Committee, said in a statement to the Washington Post, quote, the debt ceiling absolutely is one of those tools. It is not clear which specific green energy provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act the GOP intends to target. E&E News reported last month that some are eyeing provisions like the electric vehicle tax credit and mineral sourcing requirements. Senator Mike Crapo, who's a Republican from Idaho, the top Republican on the Senate Finance Committee, told the outlet that he believes the GOP will try to unwind a number of the bad policies that were enacted. Democrats, meanwhile, are facing growing pressure to diffuse GOP threats by either raising or eliminating the debt ceiling, an arbitrary restriction on the amount of money the Treasury Department can borrow to meet its obligations. Now, here's another thing the Democrats can cave on. Here's another caving opportunity. Will they take the caving opportunity, or will they get rid of the problem once and for all? Well, by the way, they think getting rid of the debt ceiling is going to be controversial. So they won't get rid of the debt ceiling until after the election. In the lame duck session, they'll feel free maybe to get rid of the debt ceiling or raise it. Anyway, Jake Johnson calls the debt ceiling an arbitrary restriction on the amount of money the Treasury Department can borrow to meet its obligations. I think it is pretty arbitrary. The federal government is projected to reach the current $31.4 trillion borrowing limit at some point next year. A group of House Democrats led by Representative Brendan Boyle, Democrat of Pennsylvania, is calling on the Democratic leadership to act during the upcoming lame duck session to, quote, permanently undo the threat posed by the debt limit. The Post noted Tuesday that, quote, some Democrats have advanced about legislation to effectively eliminate the debt ceiling by raising it to an impossibly high number, such as Googleplex. Forgive me, I guess I've heard of Googleplex, but I've forgotten what it is. So, let me double check what it is. It is the number 10 to the Google power, or equivalently, 10 to the 10th to the 100th power, or, and then they actually write out how many zeros are involved. Written out in ordinary decimal notation, it is 1 followed by 10 to the 100th zeros. That is a 1 followed by a Google of zeros. Well, that is a Googleplex. I'd like to see the Democrats do that because it would just be fun. In other words, in effect, that would eliminate the debt ceiling. I suppose somebody thinks it's so much cooler to raise the limit to the Googleplex than just to eliminate the debt ceiling, even though effectively it's the same thing. So the Republicans are going to run around and they're going to say the Democrats eliminated the debt ceiling. And the Democrats are going to reply, you lie. We did not eliminate the debt ceiling. We only raised it to the Googleplex. You lie. You lie. We didn't eliminate it. I personally prefer the Democrats minting the $100 trillion coin and using that to eliminate the threat, because that not only eliminates the threat, what it also does is demonstrate to people that the debt number is not to be feared, because Democrats can pay that off anytime they want to, or the Republicans too, if they want to, because the federal government is a monetary sovereign. I'd rather teach that lesson than teach them that raising it to the Googleplex is the same as eliminating the debt ceiling. I mean, I think the better lesson is, hey, the federal government can issue its own money, stupid. That's a better lesson. And therefore can pay off the debt anytime it wants. Using the budget process known as reconciliation would make that move possible with only Democratic votes. Hey, if the $100 trillion coin were minted, that wouldn't require any congressional cooperation at all. So that's even better. Anyway, quote, using the budget process known as reconciliation would make that move possible with only Democratic votes, bypassing a GOP filibuster in the Senate. But Biden's opposition appears to, at least for now, have put an end to those efforts, which would likely face opposition from centrist Democrats, the newspaper added, which draws attention to another advantage of minting the 100T coin. Specifically, it wouldn't matter what the centrist Democrats thought about that. Once it was done, and nobody would dare to undo it because the money would be in the account to pay off the whole national debt as it falls due. And no one would want to make that impossible for the federal government to do, except, of course, for those crazy 6 Supreme Court justices. During a speech late last week, Biden warned that the Republicans are, quote, determined to hold the economy hostage to secure Social Security and Medicare cuts. Which means, of course, that we would be perfectly right to say, well, Biden, they're determined to hold the whole economy hostage, so why aren't you determined to stop this from happening by minting the $100 trillion coin? How about that, Biden? If they get to hold the economy hostage, it's going to be your fault because you would not mint the $100 trillion coin. While the president vowed to oppose any cuts to the key programs, he also rejected calls to support debt ceiling repeal, a proposal backed by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Why doesn't he want to eliminate the debt ceiling? What's wrong with eliminating the debt ceiling? Does he really think the Republicans are going to win the presidential election of 2024 because he supported the elimination of the debt ceiling in 2022? Is the man insane? Nobody's going to care if he eliminates the debt ceiling. In future campaigns, the Republicans will say the debt is now $35 trillion and the Democrats are to blame because they eliminated the debt ceiling, so vote for us in 2024. Do you really think that anybody's going to care about that? Senator Bernie Sanders, independent of Vermont, chair of the Senate Budget Committee, said in an interview Sunday that he too opposes repealing the debt limit entirely. Bernie, why not? But stressed the importance of lifting the debt ceiling to avert economic disaster. So you lift the debt ceiling. So, Bernie, are you in support of lifting the debt ceiling and making it the Googleplex? Is that what you're for? Or are you opposed to the Googleplex because you want to have another debt ceiling fight in 2 years? What's going on with you guys? Have you lost your ability to think? Just eliminating a debt ceiling is better than that. Of course, the best would be minting the $100 trillion coin. Quote from Bernie, "You have to increase the debt ceiling," Sanders told CNN's Jake Tapper, and quote again, "what Republicans are basically doing," and I hope everybody understands this, they're saying, quote, "look, we are prepared to let the United States default on its debt, not raise the debt ceiling." unless you talk about making cuts. Quote, you know what they're talking about? Cuts in Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, Sanders added. Quote, is that irresponsible? It is absolutely irresponsible. You don't use the debt ceiling to do that, unquote. So because, Bernie, you want to have the pleasure of pointing out to everybody in the world that cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are irresponsible, and the Republicans are absolutely irresponsible, because you want to have the pleasure of doing that, you don't want the Democrats to eliminate the debt ceiling. Is that what this is about? And you don't want, the Democrats to mint the $100 trillion coin. Is that what this is about? I mean, Bernie, what kind of game are you playing here? Well, let us see what your comments are. So Dolores says it's also on YouTube. Yes, it is on YouTube. It's also on Twitter. Thank you, Dolores, for giving the YouTube link. And Russell Gorman says, obviously, Bernie never took Stephanie Kelton seriously. We don't know what Bernie's thinking. We just don't know what fantastic rationalization he has for not using trillion-dollar coins to get by the debt ceiling crisis, for not minting the $100 trillion coin, for not simply eliminating the debt ceiling once and for all. We just don't know what he might be thinking. It's really unfortunate. Anyway, I thought that you would be very interested in the Republicans' bigger and bigger plans to do evil things to the American people by using the debt ceiling crisis to extract concessions from senators who don't want to do evil things to people. I thought that would be of interest to you, and I'll be following this story, and each time they suggest something even more ridiculous, I will do a stream on it, because the extent of their ridiculousness and their meanness and their pure evil needs to be called attention to those who watch my streams. So that's all for me right now. I will be back later, specifically at 9 p.m. this evening. And at 9 p.m., I'm going to be talking about two things. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about it's the money, stupid, and defeat of the fascists. I'm going to get a lot of pushback for defeat of the fascists, because some people are going to argue the fascists are bad But the inverted totalitarians are getting us into World War III. And they're going to ask the question, would you rather have the inverted totalitarians get us into World War III, or the fascists get us into a dictatorship? That's bad, but it's not as bad as nuclear war that's going to kill all of us. So maybe we should vote for the fascists this time. And I'm going to take on that argument. So hopefully I will see you later today at 9 p.m. Thank you for coming right now. I'm sorry I screwed up the schedule. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And please visit my Patreon account occasionally. It's right up there on the screen, patreon.com/Joe_Firestone. Or my Buy Me a Coffee account, where you can easily give a small amount equivalent to the cost of a coffee at Starbucks, or maybe even a little less than the cost of a coffee at Starbucks. And that's a one-time contribution. You can also fix it so the Patreon contribution is a one-time contribution as well. There is a way to do that. But anyway, Buy Me a Coffee will be just fine. I could use a few coffees, even though I can no longer drink coffee because it doesn't go along with some other medication I'm taking. Thanks a lot. I'll see you at 9 p.m.